Trends in the World of Work, Part 2. This video focuses on ecologies or ecosystems of learning, and it's about sponsoring learning across the organization. I left you in the first part of this Module 2 video sequence with this quote, which I'll start out with again. Organizations are adopting agile ways of working to cope with the fast-changing business environment. As a result, organizations need to rethink their learning strategy and move beyond formal learning experiences to continuously reskill and upskill the workforce with personalized learning experiences integrated across and within the flow of work. Now, this is a quote from Deloitte Consulting, one of the senior learning technology strategists. And I absolutely love the Deloitte Insight series. And one of my most favorite innovators of all time is a guy named John Seely Brown. And you may not have ever heard of him, but he is a research scientist from Xerox's Palo Alto Research Center, or PARC. And I did some work with PARC when I worked in a high-tech corporate printing corporation. And we were in the process of switching over from being a physical print company, meaning we printed textbooks, and so there are these huge rooms with all these copiers, ginormous copiers, and they just would run copies of textbooks. And we were in the process of switching over from that print-based fulfillment to digital fulfillment, and worked with PARC in implementing the very first scanning division within Wisconsin. And it was amazing to see the innovation behind Xerox, and to see how they were already thinking 20 years into the future. And I look back now and realize how forward thinking they really were. And one of the research scientists at PARC was John Seely Brown. If you get a chance to take a look at some of his work, a lot of the things that we talk about in training right now, such as this quote unquote in the flow of work, that's stuff that he was working on back in 95, 2000, when he was really thinking about just-in-time learning. And he was also thinking about ecologies of technology, not just having a learning management system. And that brings me into this idea of ecologies or learning or ecosystems of learning, and the idea of learning experience platforms. And so this idea here that organizations are moving fast, that there's an expectation that people will be continuously upskilling, reskilling. People are going to be continuously learning. Yeah, this is that lifelong learning that they told us in education, 15 years ago, that lifelong learning is the thing. We need to create lifelong learners. Well, this is we're really in it right now. So what this is all about is creating platforms, creating structures that support people working across very complex workflow systems, and being able to share information, the information that information systems need to be able to house the collection of information. The systems and the structures in place need to be adaptable and scalable. They need to be mineable, meaning you need to be able to get in there and harvest data. And the data and data that you connect needs to be interconnected, meaning all data can speak with each other. You can't have data harvested from this app and this app that a program needs to be written so that the two of them can talk to each other and share data. No. There needs to be interconnected and shareable data. The structures, the computer structures and systems need to be device independent. So users, no matter if they're using a very scaled back monitor-based only interface at their workstation, or if they're using Chromebook, or they're using their cell phone, or some other device, those all need to be able to talk. And these systems need to be capable of accommodating mass contributions. So think of social media that we use today. So think of social media integrated into the computer system. I think of our computer system at work. The system that runs, UW Whitewater and the entire UW system. That is not a dynamic platform for learning. That is a platform for operating business. And it's also very complicated and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But what we're talking about here is a convergence of the business system with the rest of the learning system. Yeah. It's a whole different meaning to robust, I think. But social media connected to that. And right now, what we're experiencing in education is that we have an LMS. We have a learning management system. I know, and a lot of people are just getting used to using an LMS. And for education, for our uses, that's probably going to be sufficient for us for a while. But in corporate learning, the LMS is just too static. And that's especially true because the LMS doesn't do discussion very well. That's why we're using Teams. And Teams doesn't connect with Canvas. So we've got two different systems going on. What we do know about these systems that are being developed in corporate, as I said, interconnected, they need to be able to create or to support multiple stakeholders, especially as they're working through knowledge creation. And these need to be global networks. One of the theories that we're going to be talking about when we get into learning theory is communities of practice learning theory, Leib and Wenger. And we're going to talk about this process of taking somebody who is a novice, who isn't very experienced, and through the practices that are normative to the group, they're able to move into developing expertise. And there's a process that we use for that. We call a lot of things communities of practice. I need to say that. It's there. The way we typically do communities of practice doesn't follow the Leib and Wenger model. We're going to look at that though. Also, needs to be able to support flexible grouping. So, people may be involved in, a marketing group for this division of the organization, and then product development group for another product line. So multiple groupings, multiple purposes, and multimodal as well. It's no longer okay for information to just be black and white text. Those of us with learning disabilities have been dealing with that forever, but the literature supports the enhanced learning that comes from using multimodal sorts of information, and the speed with which someone can learn through a series of screenshots versus a bullet point list is the kind of efficiencies that we need to be thinking about when we're designing learning. The next part of knowledge creation is, as I said, in the flow of work. I mentioned that in the last video. And previously, we referred to this as just-in-time learning, and a lot of this is around problem solving. And so one of the things I want to point out is just-in-time learning is in contrast to just-in-case learning, and that's what most of our corporate training looks like right now, or organization training looks like. It's, as I said in the last video, it's sitting through 3 hours of here's everything that you could possibly ever need to know about how to deal with Family Medical Leave Act, just in case somebody in your department may have that issue. Instead of that, this is more just in time. This is about being able to connect with information where as the information is actually tagged appropriately, so you can use search engines and so on to put in something that moderately resembles what you're looking for and actually get an answer. Then, as I'm saying about being able to search and get access to information, these ecosystems of learning tools need to be able to provide archiving, retention. These need to be dynamic and updated in real time. I need to be able to not only grab information out of the system, but share information, ask other people information in real time, very similar to what we do in Teams. The problem with Teams is that I have a really difficult time going back into a conversation and harvesting any information from it. So this is why these robust systems are being developed, so that conversations can be shared. They're tagged in real time as the conversation unfolds, and you can quickly go back and grab the information that you need. Another key area that these ecosystems are providing enhanced organizational learning is in the transfer of learning. And so that's transfer of learning is huge in in any sort of learning sciences discussion, but certainly within conversations about corporate learning, where I said in the last video, there's a tremendous focus on return on investment. We want to make sure that whatever training is being provided actually transfers or connects to some outcome that it's supposed to do in the real world. And some of the tactics in transfer that enhance transfer is this, as I said earlier, communities of practice framework, this legitimate peripheral participation, moving into becoming an expert. Another thing that enhances transfer is a flat hierarchy, whereas everyone's a learner, everyone's a teacher. Doesn't matter what your title is, doesn't matter what your paycheck is, doesn't matter if you're salaried or hourly, everyone works together. Mobile, personalized, multimodal, device independent, but also able to support formal and informal learning and development. And I mean, so when I hear this, I think about a system that has WebEx Teams, that has WebEx video, that has a variety of different video-enabled communications, and also a repository for trainings that have happened before, so on and so forth. Okay, so what I think is important for us to talk about is, you know, all of that I just laid out is fine and good, great stuff to think about. What we as designers are going to be responsible for is, figuring out a lot of this stuff. But in so doing, we can't just put systems together, and we can't just pair technology together because it actually happens to talk to each other. We need to make sure that we know how to get into the mind of the users, figure out what is the problem space that we're trying to work with here. What is the situation that really needs to be dealt with? We need to apply learning theory. We need to understand how to learn with technology, how to support learning. So terms that those of us who are currently teaching use frequently: scaffolding, differentiation. That's something the corporate world has a lot to learn about. They're doing poorly in that area. Language, reading comprehension. Reading comprehension, especially in manufacturing environments, reading comprehension, and then looking at online reading comprehension. Like I said before, we need to really be thinking about multimodal forms of literacy. Accommodations for learning disabilities. As learning becomes a routine and expected part of the workday, corporate organizations, all of us working with adult learners are going to need to figure out how to continue to support those of us with learning disabilities once we get out of the K-12 system. We need to be ADA compliant. We need absolutely to bring in culturally relevant teaching, and a whole lot more. That's just scratching the surface. So some things I'd like you to keep in mind as you start going through the learning materials for this unit. Here we go. Hey, we got all the best words right here. You ready for them? Let me lay them on you. All right. Redefining work, workforces, and workplaces. We need to adapt workplace learning to the speed of business. Learning in the flow of work, as I said before. Learning on demand. High impact learning organization. The learning technology ecosystem. Organizational learning culture. Learning behavior in work teams. Upskilling, reskilling, and outskilling. Outskilling. That was new for me. And I'm still a little bit jaw dropped over it. And the final one, super learning, which between you and me, that still scares me a little. Okay, so new ways of thinking about skills, reskilling, upskilling, and outskilling. I'm going to let you take a look at that in the super learning, reskilling, and upskilling, the skilling article from Deloitte. And I'm going to let you ponder this idea of super learning and the future-proof workforce. And as you go into the materials and you start thinking about what is this learning context going to look like? What are these organizations going to look like? I want you to think about, what inputs are going to be required for K-20 So what are we going to have to do, K-20, to prepare our students for this? Is this really what we envisioned when lifelong learning came up? Is this what we thought it was going to look like? And finally, what opportunities is this going to spark? And do any of these things even interest you? But I see a ton of opportunities on the horizon, really exciting things coming up. And, I hope you do too. So I'm going to leave you with that and enjoy this module. Be in touch soon.